And Nicole is here as well. If you want to introduce yourself, Nicole.
Hi, thank y'all for being here. I'm Nicole. I'm also a family engagement specialist at Child Care Resources.
And it looks like Zainab just hopped on, and she is our data and admin guru on our team as well. So we decided to host this webinar on this particular topic because summer is approaching. Well, it's here now, and the transition to in-person KPL groups is still unfolding, and there was a lot of questions and inquiries we were getting from facilitators about this. So we thought it'd be useful to provide a space for all of you to be able to talk about this subject and learn from one another and have dialogue. So this is pretty informal. Please ask questions in the chat box. Nicole will be checking that. And if you have questions on the way, feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself. And we will take it from there. Okay, so before we start, we just wanted to recognize Child Care Resources mission statement, as this is a program built alongside the community, housed at CCR. And so our vision at CCR is that every child has a great start in school and in life, and that our mission is that we improve all children's lives, children's access to high quality early learning experiences by engaging with families, caregivers, and communities. Also embedded in our work is identifying and addressing racism so that all children thrive in their early learning environments. We also want to do a land acknowledgement. Although this is a virtual gathering, we want to recognize that we do reside on land of Indigenous peoples. And so please take a moment to reflect on what land you reside on. And if you're not sure, we encourage you to take a peek at the link that Nicole just popped in the chat box. That will allow you to learn and explore about what land you're on. And since I am the one doing the acknowledgement, I just want to recognize that I am on Duwamish land here in the Pacific Northwest. And it's land that I live on and work on as well. So thank you for taking a moment to reflect on that. Some goals we have for today, they're pretty simple. We want to provide a space to talk about in-person summer KPL, to share ideas, concerns, and questions, and then have you all as facilitators or those supporting facilitators to be feeling prepared and ready. And this is a little brief agenda of what we'll be talking about. So after we talk about the transition to in-person, we'll also talk about some tricky situations and summer activities as well. We typically get a lot of asks to talk about activity ideas, and so we're trying to be good about meeting that need and providing some suggestions on ideas for you all. But I know that all of you have amongst yourselves way more ideas than Nicole and I could ever brainstorm. So we'll also have a space for y'all to share thoughts about fun summer activities that you can do in your KPL. So everyone's kind of at a different place right now in regards to just the return to in-person. We have different states represented in this group, and some have already started doing in-person groups, some have not or are about to. And so we just kind of wanted to open up this question among all of you. Who of you are doing in-person groups right now? You feel like sharing? So maybe
We do have a comment in the chat box and it says, oh, we have several. Let's see. We're exploring in-person options, but still fully virtual right now. The next one says we are not planning on doing an in-person until the fall at the earliest.
Mm,
And then someone else chimed in and said we will be taking the summer off until after Labor Day.
okay.
Sorry, I had to get my camera on. I'm in North Carolina, but we are starting next Monday, actually, the 14th. We're gonna start our groups and they will be in person. I haven't facilitated one yet, so we're gonna see how that goes. But yeah, we have a park and it's got different areas so families can still stay, social distance, and we're gonna provide masks.
I started mine last week for the in-person, but we were outdoors. We were one church that we used to do our classes. They offered us their playground, which is a good enough space for 2 or 3 families. So there were 2 families who attended last week, and it was we were still following the protocols, and yeah, but it was fun. It was the kids actually were so happy to see each other, and we will continue doing that, and I am just doing that once a week. So one day for in person, and then 2 days fully virtual, because there are still some families who are not comfortable with the in-person class, and some families are ready to go out there, so I try to cater both of them.
Thank you. It looks like some more folks, I'm looking at the messages in the chat. Some are taking summer off and starting in the fall. I'm hoping to start in the fall. Okay. So yes, it looks like it's kind of a mix of virtual, some in person, some pausing until the fall comes. So that is good
Looks
to
like we have a
know.
couple more comments. One of them says we do not yet have plans to return to in-person for KPL groups. We will have to implement systems that control group size that we have not had in the past. And then someone else is asking a question: is anyone doing KPL in Renton, Kirkland, Bellevue, or Redmond/Sammamish?
Do you mean in-person groups specifically, Tim? Right? I know there are a lot of virtual groups going on right now in those areas, but I'm not sure about in-person yet.
There's a couple more comments that says, we are still virtual and exploring possibilities. Summers are usually busy for us for KPL. We continue doing virtual and might stay this virtual until after summer.
Okay, yeah, so it looks like a lot of people are waiting until the fall. So that's good to know. So this will be a nice pre-conversation to have before the fall comes to help you all prepare for what's ahead. So now that we know kind of where most people are at.
I'm sorry, we have one more comment.
Yeah.
It just says, actually a couple. KCLS is still working on when we will return to in-person programming. And then someone else chimed in and said, we have partnered with KCLS in Bellevue, Redmond, and Sammamish for bilingual KPNL.
So related to return to in-person, looks like for a lot of you this fall, what are your questions and concerns related to that? And ideally, we can address most of those during this discussion, or at least start to. And maybe these are questions and concerns of participants that you've talked to, maybe not necessarily yours.
Well, this question is more, it's for the whole group, but I think Samantha, you're from North Carolina as well too, right? Because I think she said, you said that you guys are gonna have it outside and you're gonna be providing masks because what we were told, and I just want to see how, because I know for me this is a concern, but it might not be for anybody else. But so some of our families have said that they would return, but they want to make sure that they're, everybody's wearing the mask, even if they're outside. But with the CDC guidelines, they said if families are vaccinated, then they don't have to wear the mask. Well, how are you all, how is that working for you on your end? Because I know for me personally, like I've shared this with my team, like we don't know who's vaccinated and who's really not. I mean, when it's not like you're asking them, hey, can I see your card or whatever. And so I know some families are really we're trying to make sure that we're making them aware of the guidelines so that they're not freaking out when if a family shows up and don't have a mask, that they're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So how I know you said something about you all will be giving the mask to the families. How is that working right now for you?
So we haven't started yet, but for the families that are coming, we only have like 8 families. They have all agreed to wear a mask, as well as, any children that they have, they've agreed to that, whether they're vaccinated or not. So we've just been kind of fortunate to have that, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. And how is that, if anybody else is doing, thank you, Samantha. Is anybody else doing it? How is it, what does that look like for you all? How is that working? How are the families like responding to mask or no mask? Can anybody share?
So I'll share. I'm in North Carolina too. I'm in Winston-Salem.
Okay.
And so our families, they want to wear the mask. They want to social distance. They even though, now in North Carolina, a lot of places I'm going now, most people have on masks, but there's also that group that's not wearing it, right? So, but I did notice that a lot of parents with the child's wearing a mask. So our groups want to wear the mask, and we're not having a problem with them doing that. We also, when we're sending out information, say, hey, if you're coming to one of our events, we would prefer that you wear a mask, and then have available masks, have masks for people who aren't. And then just tell people, in order for you to come to our events, a mask is going to be required, right? So we haven't had that issue because people understand that you're not only trying to keep yourself safe, but this is a community and you're part of a community. And so we're trying to keep everybody safe. So we haven't, knock on wood, just like Samantha, we haven't had that issue. And I think it's just because parents are just so cautious about their children, right? And then there's always that in the back of your mind, you keep hearing that we're waiting for the next surge to come along. And so people are still very cautious, and we try to do everything that we can. So we're not doing in person. We're going to be starting back in the fall of the year. But what I went someplace Sunday, and the recreation department is beginning to open back up their centers for the summer. So I was going to call them tomorrow to see, well, how's it going to work? Are you going to let children and families come in wearing a mask, or what are you going to be doing? Because we want to use their sites for some of our classes, and we just need to be aware of what protocols they're going to be following there.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I really feel that the family should wear the mask, but I know that we were told, we're going to follow the CDC guidelines that, because I think we had one family that inquired and said, hey, she wanted to come, but, I guess she didn't want to wear her mask because she said she was vaccinated. But at the end of the day, we don't know, and so I know the families that we've had that have been consistently coming want to wear the mask. They feel more comfortable. So it's been told that we just follow the CDC guidelines. If they're vaccinated, they can come without the mask. But for the families who feel uncomfortable, we just give them the option to say, if you feel uncomfortable, it's your choice whether or not you want to wear the mask or not. But yeah, Armelin, if you want to chime in and say anything, you're more than welcome. But
But I think also continue to offer the virtual option like Samantha is doing.
yeah,
Somebody else is doing the hybrid. I like the idea of you have the virtual and you also have the in-person. Right?
yeah,
Was it Irma Lynn? Were
yeah,
you talking about that? Yeah.
yeah.
But I love that idea. So I think
Yeah.
that's a good option because it kind of takes the stress off of you and your staff too.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. Armelin and I are on the same team. So
Ah.
yeah, we just we just want to make sure everybody's safe. And I mean, I know we're giving them the option to, if you if you don't feel comfortable, wear the mask or not. And we're giving them the option if you want to do virtual or in person. But like I said, at the end of the day, we don't know who's vaccinated and who's not. But it's a
I was at that first, like I said, I only did once. I only did last week was the first time we did in person. So I only had two families. So the fam I emailed them about the protocols. We need to follow this, but at the same time, I don't want to offend them that, so if you are, if you're vaccinated, it's up to you. And then so the first family came, and then when the other family came, the first family asked, hey, I'm vaccinated, are you is it okay if I do you want me to wear my mask or not? And then the other family said, I'm vaccinated too, so it's okay. And but then they kind of like they know that we have to stay 6 feet apart, so that's what we did. But the only thing is, as we advertise this, they know that we're meeting in person. I'm sure it's going to be more and more people. So we just gotta make sure that it's clear to them that we have to follow the CDC guidelines also.
I think somebody asked, was it Tim? You asked somebody asked where we are. We are in Charlotte, North Carolina. And yeah. And yeah, we did, my agency saying that we're having to follow the CDC guidelines, to say, if they're vaccinated, then they don't have to wear the mask. But yeah,
we're all here for each other, no worries.
Well, I know for us, we're in near the Seattle area in King County. So our county has, from the public health, besides the CDC, they also have protocols and recommendations. The organization I work for is kind of east of Seattle in the valley. It's called Encompass. They also have their own protocols, which all three of them sort of line up, but our agency protocols are much stricter than CDC or even King County. So, when people ask about masking or not masking, I just, I refer them to what I'll send them, or I'll bring a piece of paper that says, this is the guidelines. If you choose not to wear a mask, we really can't have you here, because there are more people around here that want people to wear masks. And I'm not too concerned about offending anyone, because I let them know up front what my personal feelings are about it. So they know, and I always tell them, I have asthma. My kids have asthma. Some of our families live with older people. Some of our families come from populations that are a little more prone to catching the pandemic or the virus. So I list off, if they're really concerned about it, and then I'm really strict about it. I just, nicely tell them, until you're ready to wear a mask, please, don't join us, or join us if you want to wear a mask, because even our little kids, the little ones, they think it's kind of cool. They get to wear a mask. And I always have a big basket full of clean and, sanitized masks. I do an outdoor group which I found very effective. I have hand sanitizer at each of the areas, my art area, my welcome area, snack area, because I set up these little picnic tables, and they don't have a problem with it. In fact, I think most of them are actually happy because of what we're doing. So I think you're going to find the majority of people are going to say, oh, thank you for asking us to wear masks. The distancing thing is real tricky, especially with the little toddlers, because they just want to like mass together and do stuff together, you know. So I'm like, I kind of gave up on trying to separate them.
That's hard when it's in their nature, right?
Yeah.
They're used to doing those
Yeah.
things.
And we're outdoors. I mean, which is another kind of safety. I always say it's a safety factor. You know, we're outdoors, so we're also, you know, in a place where we're not confined in a space. So we're a little more relaxed, I guess, about our things. Our governor has been very strict about, you know, the phases and the mask wearing and following CDC guidelines. So there's really no question, you know, people, you know, can debate with me whether they want to wear a mask or not. In the end, it's like, you can wear a mask and come and join us, or until you're ready, you know, you'll have to stay home. They don't want to stay home. I can tell you that. I mean, we all know how we went through this pandemic, and it was tough. I mean, these parents are so excited to even be outside of their own home.
Well, thank you. Thank you all so much for sharing information. I was reading some of the comments. This is helpful because, you know, for me, just personally, I just want the families to be safe. And like I said, I know that, you know, some stores, like I even went to the Dollar Tree recently, and, you know, now they have it where they're saying that if you're vaccinated, you can come in without the mask. But then if you're not, we highly encourage you to wear it. Like I said, at the end of the day, I mean, I know people personally who still refuse to get vaccinated, and they're walking around without a mask on. So you don't know who, and I'm just wanting my families to be safe. But this is very helpful, that we could make sure to let our management know, leadership know that, you know, this is, you know, that you guys shared a lot of this information, and yeah, I just want the families to be safe, and I just didn't want to feel like I'm being a little paranoid on that end, but just, you know, just wear the mask. But thank you all. Thank you all. This is helpful.
Yeah, this is very great conversation, and it's opening up a lot of the items we wanted to bring up in this webinar. And so we'll revisit some of these again in later slides and go, I think, even deeper into some of the points that you'll have brought up. But thank you for sharing. It's really useful. And I'm glad that you're using this space to have this dialogue as well. That's what it's for. So I'm going to have Nicole take the next section.
Yeah, this is such a good conversation that we're all having. So many good points everyone is bringing up. So we're going to go ahead and start talking about transitioning back into in-person groups, what that looks like, things to consider. While you're thinking about transitioning back to in-person groups, it's important to reflect and understand the needs of your participants. If you're in contact with your participants, we encourage you all to talk to them about their needs and concerns. How do you think you can and will be able to accommodate the range of needs? And when thinking of all these things, it is important to think about your own needs. What do you need to feel safe and comfortable to go back to in-person groups? And we encourage you all to talk with your supervisor about those concerns as well. There may also be some thoughts around vaccinations. I mean, we were just talking about that right now, which can be a sensitive topic for some. Some participants may or may not prefer to wear masks regardless of the CDC guidelines, and may have gotten comfortable not wearing masks. And some other things I encourage you all to think about is how you can best navigate a situation when a participant doesn't want to wear a mask. Tim just talked about how he navigates those conversations. Will you require physical distancing in your group? Will you be limiting the amount of participants? Think about how everyone, including yourself, as a facilitator, is just returning to this process of returning back to in-person, you know, interactions, not just at KPL groups, but in general. And it's just a lot to think about how everyone is feeling, concerns. Everyone has different thoughts and maybe different opinions. So just thinking about all of those things, which y'all just talked about a lot of them just now. Kim, you can move to the next slide. And establishing some norms. And, you know, we just talked about who's doing in person and what your norms are if you're doing in person right now. What kind of norms have you established and have they been communicated to participants? Cleaning guidelines, what kind of cleaning guidelines have you all, you know, procedures you've come up with that is safe and prevents germs? And so does anyone want to talk about that? Has anyone changed their cleaning procedures? If you are doing an in-person group, what that looks like, what you're using for cleaning and how often you're cleaning, any other norms that you'd like to speak about that would help the rest of the group here today?
I know for our group, we have this nice little wagon. We have everything in, and we have about, I don't know, 6 containers of like Lysol wipes, different sprays that we can use. We're trying to make stations as well and give people like activity packs, so it limits the sharing. And we also, I saw on here the temperature checking. We also have 3 thermometers that we've added to do that as well, to make people feel safe as well as ourselves, and we'll be, you know, wearing the masks as well.
Thank you for sharing that, Samantha.
I have a wagon too of the cleaning stuff that we have, but I asked the family that they bring their own sanitizing stuff, hand sanitizer, wipes, and the stuff, just to, you know, prevent also the sharing. But I do have I do have stuff for families who does not, who don't bring their own. And then with the toys and stuff like that, we I as soon as I came back here, because we just used the balls when we were out there, and so, you know, those markers. But so as soon as I got here, you know, I sanitized them, wiped them with Lysol and stuff like that.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
Well, we, at the beginning of when we started doing outdoor groups, which was back in September, and then we took a break because there was a big surge, and we just completely stopped doing our outdoor groups for about a month. I think it was November and December. But at the beginning of the September, when we first started, we got these cinch sacks, and I think they're very cheap. We got them from Amazon. We didn't have an awful lot of budget money, but we had enough to buy, you know, for like 10 families. I have 2 groups. So what we put in there were, like somebody had mentioned, like, you know, we did Play-Doh, or I had, you know, a guy who owns a baseball card shop had these Beanie Babies, and he sold them to me for $1 a piece. I put a Beanie Baby in there, and then, you know, things that we would share in common, and like you say, a little kit or something is a good idea. And they would bring it to every event, so that if they wanted to play Play-Doh, they had to pull their own out of their bag and play with it. But it also, what it ended up being was, and we talked a lot about it, was something they could do at home. So it was sort of an extension of our KPL group, and what they were learning was, you know, when you're home, here's some things you can do because you have your little bag of stuff. And the kids thought it was really cool because they actually wear it to everything. And that's kind of what we did for that. And I would say, you know, in going back, I like the idea that Irma Lynn said, having each person have a sanitizer, because if you're pushing on the pumper or whatever it is, everybody's going to have their fingers on that. But
right.
if you have each of them get one, and then, you know, I think cleanliness and helping kids understand the importance of washing their hands is something that you should always do. So you continue to do it no matter if there's a pandemic or a virus. When we come back in the fall, there'll be, you know, coming into flu season. Up here in the Northwest, you know, the weather's a little rainier. So more inside activities are happening. So we just kind of make sure we continue to talk about reducing the spread of germs by any means possible.
Thank you, Tim. Kim, do you want to move to the next slide? And we just wanted to revisit cleaning guidelines. And you're right, Tim, like one thing I wanted to mention is that, you know, cleaning should definitely, we should have some cleaning guidelines even before the pandemic. There should be cleaning guidelines. So we encourage you all to implement a consistent cleaning policy regularly in your KPL group. Toys and surfaces should be cleaned. This, you know, this is true before the pandemic. I know that you all were doing this before, and so and maybe more now. And so we have added a link to this slide that you will be able to access. It's King County's guidance on cleaning toys to prevent disease, and it is available in English and Spanish. Some tips for communicating your KPL norms. So once you do have those norms, whether it's, you know, wearing masks, being masked for your KPL groups, it is important to make sure that you're communicating these norms to participants, new participants, ongoing participants. In many ways, I highly encourage it to be done in many ways because you can never communicate this information too much. And so, you know, you could start with an announcement before a group starts. I really love the idea of having a sign at the door that says your norms, whether or not you are requiring participants to be masked or not, posting it on the wall. And again, you can do all of these things. Emailing it and using other forms of messaging. So if you're using social media, to chat with participants. You can post there as well. Making masks, hand sanitizers, wipes, and having a station for hand washing available to everyone. So if someone does come and does not have a mask for whatever reason and would like to stay, you have one available, a new one for them to go ahead and have. And then talking about it often, written and verbal. So if it's reoccurring participants and you do all of these things, then I think it will prevent some miscommunication and expectations in your KPL group. And also having resources available on COVID-19 and vaccines, because I believe that a lot of participants are still going to have lots of questions around COVID. Even at this time, going back, we've been in this pandemic for well over a year. And so, but I think they're still going to have questions around it. And so having those resources available to them, knowing where to direct them to information is just something really great to have on hand as well. Setting up your KPL space. So in thinking about your norms as well, are you going to social distance? And if you are, what your space is communicating really. And so if you are asking for social distancing, you want to make sure that you're not placing stations directly next to each other if you don't want people to be that close to one another. So making sure that you're communicating those norms also the way that you're setting up your KPL space. So I'll talk about this a little bit later, but using painter's tape is always great because it just comes right off. So using it to like have markers or areas is a really great way, you know, indoors or outdoors. There's many things y'all can do. Kim, I don't see the whole slide. Oh, thank you. In building community, you know, as you all know, this is important in our KPL groups. Invite participants to talk about their questions and concerns, ideas on how to rebuild the community in the KPL group. Make it like a celebration, a reunion for returning and then inviting new KPL caregivers and participants to join in and reintroducing one another and just rebuilding that community. I say rebuilding, but I mean like building, let me rephrase that, building a stronger community now that everyone's back. And so making it exciting and fun because it is definitely awkward. I mean, we've all been there where we've been cooped up in our homes for so long. We go out to the grocery store. Sometimes it can be awkward to interact with one another because we're not used to doing that anymore for a long time. And so it might be a little awkward coming back together. So with all these new norms and everything, just kind of making it exciting to be together and having people talk about it. Having questions and even talking about their concerns. Yeah. Oh, and I missed the last one, Kim, because I really love this idea of if your group is comfortable and you're able to, having them bring a snack and you know, sitting around, even even distancing, but just sitting around and chatting, you know, with like a snack in hand. All right, and then we're going to move on to what's going to happen with virtual groups. I heard some saying that they really like the idea of doing a hybrid. So when thinking about continuing or discontinuing your virtual KPL group, we just encourage you all to speak with your KPL team, listen to what may be best for the community. Some other things to think about is capacity. And we do know that KPL could take up to 6 hours for prepping and planning. And so, you know, in thinking about that, if you're doing a group in person and a virtual group, then, and the virtual group has different participants than your in-person group, that would be considered 2 separate groups. And so in thinking about that, it's definitely more work because you are facilitating 2 groups now. So thinking about those things, talking with your KPL team and supervisor. So if you are doing a virtual and an in-person and they're separate participants, you will also be required to do attendance reports on each of those groups. And so just thinking about those things and what's best for you as a facilitator in your community, just some things to think about. Kim, I don't know if you wanted to add something to that. Oh, I will say one more thing. Sorry. I will say one more thing about masks. So if you are a group that is requiring masks and a participant comes and they would like to find a group that allows no masks, you know, you don't have to wear a mask, that we do ask that you put your norms into the monthly attendance that Zainab sends over in SurveyMonkey so that we have the information to put into the directory so that we know which groups, like what norms fit each group. So if you do have someone coming that wants to visit a group that does not require mask, you will also have that information and saying, hey, we require masks. However, there's another group tomorrow at this place and they do not require masks if you just feel more comfortable visiting that group. Kim, I feel like you wanted to say something.
Well, I was just thinking about other states in attendance and their networks and whatever state you're in, coming up with a system with your team and the folks in your area about being in touch with who's requiring what for their groups and referring families to groups based on their needs. I think this is going to take a lot of communication among people to make sure that we're meeting people's needs.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot. It's a lot. So I'm gonna pass it on to you so we can do tricky situations.
Yeah. And before we continue, I just wanted to pause and see if people have any questions, thoughts, feelings. So the next section, we will actually be, well, I want to offer you all the options. We were planning on doing breakout sessions to have some smaller conversations on tricky situations. Would you prefer to be kept in this medium, just have a larger conversation amongst one another, or would you prefer to be broken out into smaller groups, maybe groups of 3? This isn't too big of a group, so I think it can work either way.
Maybe you can let us know in the chat box.
I think people are larger group. Okay. We will go with larger group. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. The energy is good in this group, so I thought maybe the larger group. Okay, well, that makes it easier for me, so I don't have to do breakouts. All right, so in that case, I do not need to share the link with you all because we can look at it together on the screen. Okay, so some of the tricky situations that we set up for you, some you've actually already touched upon in the earlier conversation, but this will be a nice opportunity to dig a little bit deeper. And just before we start, we just wanted to acknowledge that there are lots of different opinions and thoughts and feelings about the topics we're talking about, and just like how y'all have already exhibited during this conversation, to remain kind and respectful and curious during this dialogue, because people are in very different places in regards to this topic. You all do a great job of that, but we just wanted to put that in the beginning before we started. So this is our first tricky situation. And if I can have a volunteer read it out loud, that'd be really helpful. Someone wants to chime in for that.
I can.
Thank you.
Tricky situation number 1. You, the facilitator, begin offering in-person KPL this summer. A caregiver tells you that they are not comfortable attending unless they know that all the adults there, including yourself, are fully vaccinated. They ask if you are fully vaccinated and inquire if you can verify that all other adult participants are as well. They say it is your responsibility as the facilitator. How do you respond? This is a hot topic in the community where I live, and how, and contrasting it with other communities that are nearby. There are some like very strong opinions on both sides of the spectrum. And so there are definitely some people who really emphasize HIPAA and that it's a violation to ask if anyone is vaccinated. And for me personally, I feel like I can go around that by, not around it, but I have to focus on what my agency's policy is, and that has to be our focus, which is we all wear masks, whether it's vaccinated or not, and that I can't share someone else's private information with them.
Thank you.
We also have a comment in the chat box, and it says HIPAA guidelines don't allow me to do that.
Yes.
Okay,
Very
I guess
simple.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was gonna piggyback off of Sue. and just say kind of like the same thing. There's very strong opinions here as well. And I would probably ask them what it is besides doing that would make them feel more comfortable, and see if I can just accommodate them to make them feel comfortable. If we have a virtual group, maybe do that instead, just so I don't make anyone feel uncomfortable, and accommodate to their needs.
Very, very responsive. Thank you. Any other thoughts about this situation? I would just add as well that as an agency, Child Care Resources does not have a standard blanket policy for all KPLs in regards to vaccines or vaccine cards and masks. And part of that is that this is a national program, and individuals and peoples and communities, their needs differ very greatly across the board. And each organization is serving a population that has different needs, and each organization will decide different things based on their process and what they decide to focus on and so on. And so it really is up to your employer / organization, wherever you work, to establish the norms that you will carry out, and for you as a team, the facilitator, and everyone else to be on the same page and have a conversation about how to move forward with returning it in person. And it's clunky, and it's not a straight line, and it's not perfect. I think we just have to accept that and take it one step at a time. So yeah, I just wanted to make that clear that we don't personally, we won't be intentionally advocating for a specific policy across the board. And we'll move on to the next situation. Does anyone want to read this one out loud? Oops, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Does anyone want to read situation number 2 out loud?
I can read it.
Thank you.
Tricky situation number 2. You are facilitating a summer KPL group, and there is a mixture of participants wearing and not wearing masks. This is the norm for your group. A caregiver and child are playing at a station when another caregiver who is playing with their child begins to move closer to them, less than 6 feet apart. The caregiver who was originally at the station says, "Excuse me, I don't feel comfortable with you being so close to me. Are you vaccinated? Can you show me your vaccination card?" Sorry, guys. The other caregiver says they do not have to show a vaccination card if they do not want to. The caregivers go back and forth disagreeing, and other participants start to pay attention to the conversation. What do you do? Can I just chime in on this one here for a minute?
Please do. Please do.
Because this is why, I was explaining to Ermeline and our supervisor that this is why I think it's so important that we make sure that the protocol, the guidelines are very clear, that families know ahead of time before they get there, so they're not freaking out when, if somebody comes and they're not wearing masks or, not doing the 6 feet apart. Because I could see one of our groups going this route right here, and this is what I'm trying to avoid. So I would say that's why I just stressing, like, putting those things out ahead of time, having that discussion with the families who are coming, so that they are very clear. So if they choose, like, to say, hey, like, maybe, this might not be the group for me right now, I'll just do virtual, that everything is clear and laid out so everybody's not freaking out. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any other comments or suggestions?
So Sherna, so what do you do about the back and forth conversation that's going on though?
Well, for me personally, if I was there, because I don't have a problem saying what I need to say, I would have that discussion with them. Because at the end of the day, we can't ask them to show their vaccination card. We can't ask them, but I don't have a problem in speaking up and saying, hey, let's talk about this. But this is what I'm saying. For me personally, that's why we got to have those conversations ahead of time, so that they don't come in being a little confused. But we can't ask them to show the vaccination card. Yeah, and so it would have to be where we discuss it, because obviously, if they're having that issue, I'm sure other people in the group who are looking at this going on is probably having questions themselves too. So it would have to be a group discussion. But like I said, this is why we need to make sure that it's very clear, and that people are reminded through the time. So it's not just a one-time conversation, and that people are being reminded. So that's what I would do, because I don't have any problems in having that discussion about the mask, and but making sure everybody's clear. So that's what I would do. That might not be the right thing, but what would you recommend?
I was just thinking about, I would probably do the same. I'm wondering, do you have, and you said don't have just one discussion about it, but I'm thinking maybe the very first in-person meeting could be where all the families, social distance, we're sitting down having a discussion around level of comfortability in being in the room, and just and I would bring up these same tricky scenarios, right? And then let's talk through these scenarios, folks. How are we going to handle it, right? So people are clear. It's like showing a green card.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when I say not just having a one-time discussion, it doesn't have to be something that's so overwhelming, like you're like constantly just talking about it, but just like little refreshers along the way, so that everybody's clear. So it's not like, oh, I said that to you 2 months ago, and they're like, oh, I didn't know. And then you have new people rotating in and out at different times throughout the group. So somebody might come for 1 week and then not show up for 3 weeks, and they don't know what new guidelines are in place for the group. You know what I mean? Like stores might have different guidelines, but KPL group might have the same thing. So that's what I would say. Just have that ongoing conversation, but again, making sure it's very clear up, ahead of time, so we don't run into scenarios like this one. But I like that idea, and just, using these tricky situations as things to, have that conversation, because it is a very sensitive and a very subject, and, there's different views on it. And so, but at the end of the day, we want everybody to be safe. So, yeah.
I agree.
And Sue, your hand is raised. I just want to make sure you had him.
Yeah, thank you. I was thinking that I probably would try to redirect the conversation with about social distancing, about social distancing, and just a friendly reminder that we are a mixed group where some of us are and some of us aren't wearing masks. And if you're not comfortable, our decision that we came up with together before today was that we were just going to wear a mask if we weren't comfortable. So I have masks over at this table if you would like to put on a mask, but we can have more conversation about this later. But we just don't want to put anyone on the spot and make people uncomfortable by asking them directly those kinds of questions, just out of privacy and comfort for the children, like maybe pull in the kids a little bit, like, because everybody's watching. The parents aren't just watching, but the kids are watching, and they feel our tension. And so if there's suddenly tension between the adults, that's going to affect the children. So that's what my thoughts were.
Yeah, Sue, I thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I like that idea too. I also, you know, like I said too, maybe just I think it would also be good to just like address not, and you know, like I don't really, I'm more of a like, I don't really like scenarios kind of, because for me, like I have to be there because there's so many things that plays into a situation. And so I never do good with stuff like this right here because I have to be in the moment. But I think also to just, I think it would be good to address at some level too, because obviously there's something that was missed there. If they didn't know, there was something missed at the beginning. It obviously looks like for them to get to that point. And then I'm sure that other people in the group might also be having questions or concerns and stuff like that. So for, you know, so that's what I was saying, like maybe just in addressing it, like, you know, as a group, and it doesn't have to be like in a way, like, I mean, it doesn't have to be in a way where you're putting them on the spot, but maybe just as a just as a hey, you know, as a you know, bringing it up to just say, hey, let's maybe talk about this in some way, some format needs to be addressed as a group because there's something that was missed. So if they missed it there, then there might be some others in that room that might have missed it as well too. So maybe some way, even if it's not that day or that session, some discussion needs to be had. But I do like your idea too, Sue. Thank you.
It's great, great conversation. Any other thoughts? Something that popped up in my head as well as with groups that are really diverse in languages and whatnot, just being sure that those who are coming in with different language level abilities and whatever language your group communicates in, just to make sure that everyone's understanding and using interpretation services or whatever it may be to make sure that all are on the same page and being communicated to, and to not make assumptions, right? Because maybe a message or announcement may not be well understood by everyone in the group. So just to keep on your radar as well. And we have a couple
Yeah, I
more.
think even some. Oh
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead, Nicole.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think even some visuals would be nice.
Yes, visuals, definitely. Agreed. Okay, and the next one is our third one. Would anyone like to read this
one? I can read it if nobody wants to volunteer.
I can read it.
Okay.
It is decided for your indoor summer KPL group that participants need to wear masks unless there is an extenuating circumstance. Your organization plans to operate KPL without requiring masks after summer ends. It is believed that more people will be vaccinated at this point. KPL attendance is also expected to be exceptionally high during the summer as older siblings usually attend while school is out of session. This information is communicated to participants over the course of many weeks, and everyone is aware. However, one day, a caregiver refuses to wear a mask. You ask if they have an extenuating circumstance. They say they do not. They simply do not want to wear one. They are very upset. They enter the KPL space without a mask. Other caregivers have expressed concern. Your supervisor is not there. What do you do? Well, to me, what I would do is I would just, talk to that person, talk to that caregiver that, hey, we already, we all are, just like what Sherna was saying, we better keep them informed before we meet, So with our situation, they email me that they are interested in coming to the class before they come. So what I do is I just, repeat the protocols and the stuff that we need to be doing. So they are aware of that. So, but then yeah, maybe just ask that caregiver to, hey, can I talk to you for a second, so it, the other caregivers want to, you know won't hear anything else more, because once, so it won't escalate more. That's what I'm trying to say. So yeah, will that work?
Yes, yes. Thank you. I appreciate the word you chose about not escalating the situation, because we want to, the situation is that they're upset, so we don't want to make them more upset. We want to de-escalate it, if anything, and it's sensitive. So yeah, thank you. I really know it's a very good response. And I think, a lot of what's related to this, we all have talked about already thus far, about how to approach talking to caregivers, the norms and everything. And really, if you come in strong, establishing everything in the beginning and continue to communicate it, it really will prevent and mitigate these situations from being huge issues or surprises, The least surprise, the better. Okay, and we have one more. Does anyone have anything to add to this one before you move on to the last one? And does anyone want to read this last one? Me too.
I can read it.
Thank you.
Tricky situation number 4, a caregiver approaches you and says that their toddler is struggling transitioning from isolation during the pandemic to in-person interactions with people. The small girl has spent most of her life having to physical distance. Up until now, most people she has seen outside of the family have always had masks on. The caregiver expresses concern about the impact the pandemic has had on her development and would like some resources and support. How do you respond?
I have a small answer to that. Well, aside from KPL, we also offer the Triple P, which is a positive parenting program, which helps support the parents on the development of their children. We teach them some strategies, if they have concerns about their children's development and stuff like that. So I would just refer them to have a one-on-one meeting and to develop a plan to support the child as well as the family. And also we can, I don't know, that's all.
Thank you. Any other additions or thoughts to what was just said?
This is something that I actually think about because I'm sure you heard him. My son sighed while I was talking because he's annoyed with me. But he's not even 3 yet. So he was born, he was barely a year old when the pandemic hit. So I'm not sure how things are going to be, with him not noticing. He pulls my mask up whenever I go anywhere. So, it's weird to think about that. So I'm not sure how I would do that myself because we don't have that I am aware of. The Triple P out here, we might. I'm brand new to this, so I don't really know what I would do.
And also, I think it would be nice for us as facilitators to have the flyers and stuff that we bring with us whenever parents or families raise their concerns, like we have at least a backup, like, oh, here, I can refer you to this agency. You you go there and you can get support from them, so we always have to have that resources from the community ready for them.
Thank you both for sharing. It's as was just said, it's always recommended and good in general to have resources and a place for referrals or a direction to go to when a caregiver does approach a facilitator about child development concerns, in general, generally speaking. And so in this situation, it's very specifically tied to concerns about the pandemic, yes, but if you already have that system in place about what referral or what resource to give caregivers related to concerns about child development, you can use that as well. And then Samantha, I think what you just shared with us is a great example of how to respond to the situation, is just meet them with understanding. Be like, I think about this too. I'm a mom too. And this is what I think about. And if you're thinking about it, surely many other families are thinking about the same exact situation. Maybe they just haven't voiced it yet, but they're thinking about it or have noticed observations about their child's behavior that maybe they're not sure about or they have concerns about. And so I think just meeting them with compassion and understanding that, we all went through the same thing and it's impacted us in different ways. And that's very normal to be thinking about this. And if they do have concerns, you can offer them whatever you have at that group that you can offer your participants. And then if they're connected already to a provider of some sort that they see regularly, that they can reach out to them as well. We also put on this slide, and you'll get this emailed out to you all in your Tuesday email, a resource from Harvard's Center of the Developing Child. They have lots and lots of resources on the topic of child development as it relates to COVID and the pandemic. And that's a starting point. If you want to sift through those resources and take a look at them for some knowledge and information, or maybe want to share that with folks, that can be one way to start as well. And this is, one of many, many things that are out there that may overlap with the resources you may have or not, but we just want to give one stepping stone to a direction that you could go to. And, this may be a question you may hear a lot as we return to in person, or it may not. I think it's kind of hard to tell what it's going to be like over the course of months and the year as people gather more for KPL and children and families are out in public more and see people more and have interactions. And I think it may be telling for some families seeing how their child is able to cope and manage all that. And there may be surprises along the way. So we just want to make sure that everyone feels supported. Does anyone have questions about this situation or is still feeling not sure about it? Because I want to make sure that everyone feels good about this, the other three situations as well, about how to approach them. I think all you have come up with really, really great ideas on how to navigate this. And I feel confident that all of you are prepared and have it in you to approach these situations. But I want to make sure everyone's feeling good. No one looks like they're in despair or anything, so we're all feeling all right about it. So just to wrap up this section, we just wanted to let you know that this is a sticky process and that encouraging your participants and just thinking for yourself as well, just to remain curious and have empathy and just keep communicating with one another. I think it will be kind of like this up and down trajectory as the summer comes and flu season comes and who knows what the world will bring. So just always keep communicating and be curious and understanding. I think everything will be good. And then if you continue to have questions or concerns about any of it, please bring them to our monthly condos we have at the first Tuesday of every month. That's a really great space to ask questions and hear from other folks like we're doing right now in a more informal, less structured setting where we won't have like a side deck for you all, but it's more relaxed and we can bounce ideas off of each other. So the conversation continues after this, definitely. So we wanted to wrap up on summer activities. I'm just seeing, I apologize, a message in the chat box about, I think, how to approach the last situation. Yeah, a good suggestion on speaking about attachment theory, which is great. So if you have any specific resources that you like in particular, relate to your message, please send them along to us because we would love to share that out to folks. Thank you for chiming in about that. Okay, so we're going to shift to a more fun topic, I think a little bit more light. Just some ideas about summer activities for you all as you're transitioning to in-person, whether that be this summer or in the fall. And Nicole and I have just called some things to consider if you're looking to plan your groups and make sure that they're COVID friendly and also fun for everyone. And so if you're outdoors, there are lots and lots of activities you can do outdoors that don't require being very close in proximity to one another. Especially if you have a larger space, like you're outside, it's very easy to do things like jump rope, hula hoop, hopscotch, dance, limbo, juggle, pick catch, offer just open space for kids to run and crawl or walk. You know, the outdoors is a great playground in itself, but also group games like Red Light, Green Light, and things that don't necessarily require materials, but just your participants and some sets of instructions to have fun and run and play. We definitely encourage, you know, sometimes thinking more simply. Sometimes the simple ideas are often the ones that are most fun and easiest to plan. So keeping in mind your schedules and how much time you have during the week. Try not to make it too much of a burden on yourself, and definitely try to plan activities that are accessible, universal to all, and don't take too much time planning. Some more specific ideas on what you can do outside for activities, particularly thinking about what to use in nature if you're outside for your KPL group. Nicole is a huge advocate for loose parts. I am too. And so the things you find outside in nature, sticks, rocks, leaves, plants, sand, bark, dirt, pine cones, acorns, and so on, definitely incorporate into your group and have as items available for play. In a flexible way that allows kids to, you know, choose how they want to play with it and let the child lead and decide how they want to navigate and play with it.
Oh, Kim froze. We'll just give her a moment to see if she comes back. Oh, there you are. You froze for a moment, Kim.
Okay. I was just saying, I don't know what the last thing you heard. We're an advocate for loose parts and really encourage you to use outdoor items and encourage child-led activities to let the kids decide how they want to play with these outdoor items in a way that's creative and fun for them. And then we have also seen a lot of outdoor groups like to use sensory ice cubes, which is when you take ice cube trays and you put little things in the ice cube trays like flowers or plants and things like that, and you freeze them and then you bring them to the group and you can put them in a box or a bowl and they make really fun sensory cubes for the children. You can do art activities, leaf imprints, which is when you take crayons and you rub a piece of paper or relief. To see the imprint, you can paint rocks, you can take sticks and wrap yarn around them. You can make flower necklaces, crowns, or chains. You can develop a scavenger hunt. You can also collect and sort items by nature, shape, color, or texture. Have conversations about what they see in the outdoors, like insects or animals and plants. And you can also sing songs about nature while outside. So there are a lot of opportunities to use the environment around you if you're meeting outside during your KPL. And especially if you're tight on budget and are concerned about purchasing materials, use what's free out in the world already. that you can have access to and your participants can enjoy. Does anyone have any other ideas about outdoor groups and activities that maybe you've done that has worked really well that aren't on these slides?
You can find a lot of materials at thrift stores that can be very useful in outdoor stuff. What I've found is, and it's not just boys, but boys and girls, because I was into it when I was a kid, was Hot Wheels. So I've been buying like bags of Hot Wheels at the Value Village or Goodwill. And also just whatever I see that looks like it'd be fun for outside. Our kids like, I bought a little real cheap kind of foam bat with a real like squishy ball, Nerf ball. And then I found a cone, like a construction cone, and the kids have been using it to play t-ball. And then you can make some bases if you want. Just, you know, when we were younger, we just took mitts and made bases. But those are kind of fun stuff for boys and girls to do. And then I had like, if I'm doing outdoor groups and I bring a lot of my stuff in bins, if I have access to water in an outdoor area, like a faucet or something, I'll take everything out of those bins and put water in it, and then take some of the little things that I can find. Like again, at a thrift store, you can find those little ducks, those little floating ducks, or some little boats. You can even make your own little boats, but kids really love to play in the water.
Yes,
Those are great ideas.
I didn't even have water on this. That was a huge miss. Water, yeah.
And yes, I just want to comment on one thing, Tim. You're so right. Thrift stores are so golden for finding items. When I was a teacher, that's the only place I shopped to get items, were at thrift stores. And I would find so many cool things and books and just everything for so cheap and unique items. So really, really fun stuff. It looks like we have some comments in the chat box, Kim. Let's see. More art. Painticles to paint with, sensory big with frozen items, but I'm not sure how the sensory bin would work with COVID guidelines. Maybe plastic shoebox, individual sensory boxes, or habitat boxes.
Yeah, Nicole, I think our next item, is about kind of tailoring some group activity ideas to be more individually set up to be COVID friendly. But yes, individual sensory boxes are definitely a way to do that.
Yeah, I like that idea, Sue, having the individual sensory box, because I know like the Dollar Tree has those little plastic shoe boxes and they come in all those different colors. So yeah, that really is a good idea. Thank you.
You might be able to find like clear plastic Tupperware, or even some recyclables that are clear. And what the kids like to do is they have to be able to shut. So you can buy, again, at the dollar store, Super Balls or marbles or things like that, and you cut the paper to the size of whatever container you have, drop some paint in it, seal it, and then they just shake it around and it creates a masterpiece.
And if you're having trouble collecting enough recyclable items, you can ask families too. You can have like a little drive, like have a big box or spot in your KPL space, and every week if they have extra big boxes or plastic containers at home that they're going to dispose of anyway, to wash them and rinse them and bring them to the group so that the larger group can enjoy sensory activities and things like that. Very resourceful idea. And oh, sorry, Nicole's name's not supposed to be there. But this, sorry about that. Just so we have some suggestions for all of you on how to adapt some activities to be COVID friendly. Like we said, individual sensory bins are a great idea. Also thinking about like sidewalk chalk and water paint and bubbles and Play-Doh, sensory bottles and things like that. Thinking about how to implement these in your group so that everyone can enjoy, but also in a way that can be distanced if that's what your group chooses to do. So again, thinking about how you set up your space. If you want to do any other activities like this on the slide, setting up the space, and also how to offer the items without be an individual offering or a bigger group offering, depending on what your participants need. And Nicole mentioned this earlier about painter's tape. That's great. It's a blue tape. It peels off really easily. It can go on anything and it'll peel off. And using that to create boundaries, if you're making stations in your KPL group, that can be a good way to set it up. Nicole, do you have any extra thoughts or ideas?
Yeah, I just wanted to say the Play-Doh. I put Play-Doh there because, and you all were talking about this earlier about the kits, like having Play-Doh in bags. And I really love that idea. Like making Play-Doh, I know y'all are so busy, but if you did make some Play-Doh and then separate them into baggies so that when someone comes in, if they want to play with Play-Doh, they have their own little baggie and then they're able to take it home with them. And it's their own personal Play-Doh. So they won't be sharing with someone else. It will just be theirs to use on their own. And yeah, individual sensory bins. I just love that idea as well. And there's so many different types that you can use.
And we just wanted to give you a couple of resources to look into if you're interested. One of them is an article from NACI about outdoor play and how essential it is for healthy child development. And then as always, our KPL Pinterest page for you to take a look at. We have tons of boards that have tons of pins on different activity ideas that you could do for your group. So don't forget about that as well.
Okay, so we just want to know, and you all can either type it in the chat box or say out loud what you are excited about for KPL this summer or what you're excited about for fall for KPL if you're going back to in-person in fall. So you can type it in the chat or popcorn it out loud. Tim, what links are you referring to? Are you referring to the resources from NAEYC, the ones that Kim just read off? Yeah, we will send out this PowerPoint to everyone, so you will receive all the links in the PowerPoint.
It'll be in our Tuesday email. The one we read.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Anything y'all are excited about?
Well, I haven't facilitated a group yet, so I'm excited to do that.
Yay. It looks like you have a comment that says seeing groups actually start up again for the first time. Yeah. I think I'm excited to hear about it all. Like to come to our monthly convos and just hear from all of you how everything's going and hear about all the exciting things that are happening. Seeing our families, it's been too long. Yeah. I'm looking forward to having more participants during the summer since kids are going to be off school. And then it says, thank you for all of your ideas. Thank you, Peggy. The next comment says, our families have made connections during group that they will continue. Yeah. There's a lot of things to look forward to.
I want to say that I have really enjoyed hearing, Tim, from you about the outdoor play group like this year. That's been like this, I don't know, shining light in this pandemic, like for KPL, because it was really disappointing for us. We were going to be starting a new play group. And so I had like this cloud hanging over me in the beginning, you know, for so long, because like we couldn't get started because of the pandemic happening and all these different factors. And I just have really enjoyed seeing this group evolve over this time period and hearing all the innovative things that people are doing, and focusing, like shifting the energy to what we can do and what is actually happening. And so I'm just excited to hear more of what ends up happening, because it is kind of unpredictable at this point. There's a lot of things out of our control, but there's proof that there's like a lot of different innovating things that can still take place. So that's what I'm excited about.
That was lovely, Sue. And I agree. You all have so many wonderful ideas. Kim and I just facilitate these meetings, but you all are the ones that come up with the really great ideas, and it's inspiring.
I think sometimes we don't really realize how much of an impact we also have in our groups. And I'll just give you an example, because this year was so challenging and tough for families. Yesterday, when I did my last group for one of my groups, one of the moms, you know, afterwards, I could tell she was crying. And so myself and another one of the moms went over there, you know, to say, hey, how's it going? You know, and she goes, I'm just so happy, you know, that I was able to connect with people. This has been a hard year. She's pregnant. She's going to have, you know, another baby. She had just moved to the area kind of right before COVID started. So it was kind of almost like a lifesaver for her. I mean, she was very emotional, and you know, I knew it was very important for her. And then, you know, the person that was with me there, she said, oh, isn't it great that, you know, we live in the same neighborhood. We only live like a block apart. We're going to get together during the summer. And she had a smile on her face, or in her eyes, that I could see. So I think sometimes we don't hear about the impact, but I think especially this year, we were incredibly impactful for the toddlers and families.
Thank you, Tim.
That was a very nice story.
Yeah.
A perfect way to conclude this meeting.
Yeah, I think we're over just by a couple minutes, so we want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for joining us today and for the wonderful, fruitful conversations and ideas. We appreciate you all so much, and thank you for being here today.
Yeah, I think all you have are contact info, but it's always here, including the slides if you need it. Photo cred, all the beautiful photos we used in this slide deck. And we will see. Oh yes.
One thing, Samantha, before you get off, I know you haven't done your group yet, but I just want you to know you're gonna do great. Okay, you're gonna do great. I could just see it, like you're just your personality. Don't be nervous if you ever want to like just even do what you call it, shadow one of our groups. Where, you know, you're always welcome. You can reach out to us, reach out to Ermeline, but you can do that if you want to, but it's going to be fun. You're going to have a blast.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I agree.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.